Donald Trump said some kind words about former NSA and CIA whistleblower Edward Snowden, who most of you in my audience are aware of, for his work with Glenn Greenwald and Laura Poitras to expose the U.S. government for flagrantly and illegally and unconstitutionally spying on literally everyone in the country without a warrant, really everyone in the world without a warrant. And he did massive document dumps on highly classified government programs like the Stellar Wind program and similar programs that really showed the extent of the warrantless mass surveillance. And ever since he did this public service, he's been on the run, forced to flee the United States, his family, his girlfriend, his mother, and was granted asylum in Russia because he's been hunted by the CIA and the FBI and the rest of the national security apparatus relentlessly. So Trump was asked about Snowden in an interview, and his response was that a lot of people are saying that Edward Snowden is being treated unfairly. Then in short order, Trump showed exactly what's behind his sympathies with his newfound sympathies with Edward Snowden. Of course, it comes back to him. Everything comes back to him. He actually makes a pretty decent point about how Edward Snowden, way before the 2016 election, way before Russiagate and the Mueller investigation and all of that, Edward Snowden was the one ringing the alarms about the abuses at the FISA court and how this just a rubber stamp for the intelligence agencies, and for any reason they can just present the most flimsy evidence to a secret court about the justification what they have for why they need to spy on somebody, and the court gives it to them and almost never rejects requests for surveillance. And of course, this is something that Trump's been complaining about, rightfully, I must say, because the entire Russiagate nonsense and the Mueller investigation and all these different investigations into the Trump campaign the origins of it goes back to the FISA court approving surveillance of people in the Trump campaign based off of rumor and innuendo that operatives paid by the Democratic Party manufactured and presented to the FBI. So because it affects him personally, Trump's been railing against the abuses and the corruption with the whole FISA court situation. And yes, of course, this new found respect and admiration for Edward Snowden from Trump is entirely self-serving and hypocritical, because there are a bunch of instances of Trump saying how Edward Snowden is a traitor, he should be executed, repeating all the bullshit talking points that you'd hear on mainstream media about a whistleblower who exposed government wrongdoing and criminal action. But now that it bolsters his case that the FISA court is bullshit and the Russian investigation was always bullshit, now he's got kind words for Edward Snowden, and he's floating a pardon. Amen. Whatever gets you to the right position, at least you're at the right position. FISA court is bullshit. There's a huge problem with mass surveillance in this country, and Edward Snowden was one of the first people to actually expose this and show the classified government documents confirming these programs exist. And then after this, Republican Congressman Thomas Massie tweeted out that Edward Snowden should be pardoned. So hopefully this is indicative of a larger movement on the right to not only pardon Edward Snowden, but take on the national security apparatus, take on the deep state and their warrantless mass surveillance of American citizens. Edward Snowden is a national hero. I'm not one who loves to throw around the hero word. I'm not one for deifying and putting people on a pedestal and That's just not me. Everybody's a human being. Everybody's incredibly flawed in certain ways, and especially in politics. And when it comes to politicians, there definitely are no heroes. But Edward Snowden, like I touched on earlier, the work that he did to expose the crimes of our government was way more than any journalist in the U.S. has done, definitely in the last couple decades. Because before Edward Snowden did this massive dump of classified documents, we already knew that there was some sort of mass surveillance apparatus in the United States from the Bush administration, from the creation of the Patriot Act and the Department of Homeland Security, and changes to the FISA court. We already knew that the government was abusing surveillance powers. And it was before Edward Snowden did this document dump, that wasn't really up for debate, but there was always a stigma related to it or attached to this topic, and people who were trying to sound the alarm about how serious of an issue this was, a lot of them were dismissed and smeared as conspiracy theorists and kooks and crazies and, oh, you think the government's looking at your emails and all this stuff. And then Edward Snowden one day confirms the worst of the worst suspicions that people had when it comes to government and mass surveillance. He exposed not only is the government collecting all data and information on everybody outside of the United States, which is legally dubious and questionable at best, but they're also turning that's unmatched surveillance power on U.S. citizens, which is incredibly illegal and unconstitutional. He showed how they're collecting everybody's emails, everybody's phone records, everybody's text messages, everybody's internet history. He showed that the relationship between the government and private companies when it comes to collecting people's information. He showed that the NSA had a fake Google website. It was like a shadow Google that in sometimes when people would go to a Google, go to google.com, go to the Google website, it would redirect them to the NSA website that looked exactly like Google, and then they would use that. Any information you put in there, the NSA immediately had and would save it and record. And it would operate like Google, and nobody would even know that they're using the NSA website. He showed, the extent that the government was spying on people. The Love Intel Pro program, where people who were at the NSA and had access to these programs, there were no safeguards. There was no oversight of these programs. The operators who had access to them were using to spy on people in their personal life, to spy on their exes or people they had a crush on and were stalking. Edward Snowden showed all this in the leaks, right? And ever since then, he's been public enemy number one to the U.S. government, to the CIA and the FBI and the NSA. And the story of Edward Snowden is one of those just undeniable examples of how the mainstream media and respected institutions and the entire education system in the United States will lie to the public on purpose to manufacture consent in order to justify and normalize the crimes of the U.S. government. Isn't it stunning how people whose whole job it is to be informed on such issues and to follow these things closely and know that the very important and relevant details, isn't it so funny how if you turn on any mainstream media news outlet, it's almost unanimous how they feel about Edward Snowden. He's a traitor. He stole classified government documents. He's working for Russia. He's an enemy of the state. All the while ignoring what he exposed. Isn't that funny? How these people, it's their job. Some of them quote, national security experts in analyzing national security matters. Isn't it funny how in such a clear-cut case as Edward Snowden, where he's exposing the wrongdoing of our government, they take the exact wrong position for years and parrot the exact talking points coming from the CIA, the NSA, and the FBI, who were implicated in these leaks. It's funny how these national security experts are repeating verbatim the talking points from the people who were exposed as criminals. Isn't that funny? And isn't it funny how this story is not taught in our school system? Not taught in the story of Edward Snowden from the day it happened should be something that is taught at honestly, you could say from as low as middle school, definitely in every high school in this country, and it should definitely be taught in every college in this country, because it is impossible to overstate how important what we learned from Edward Snowden is and how relevant it is to our lives. Edward Snowden, key example of how manufacturing consent works, not just in the mainstream media, but throughout our entire society. And because I'm not even denying the fact that there are some people who genuinely will make the case, oh, something, Edward Snowden, he still leaked the government documents and that's still a crime and he should be in prison and he shouldn't have done that and all that stuff. There are people who still say that, and honestly, that is just, I don't think anybody comes to that conclusion by themselves. I don't think you just get the straight facts of the story, the straight details. Hey, the government was committing a crime. Edward Snowden was working with the government. He saw this arguably the crime of the century being committed and everybody ignoring it. And so he made the decision, all right, I'm going to inform the American public. And ever since then, he's been on the run. He's been exiled from the United States and been hunted from the intelligence community. I don't know how you get the straight facts of this story and still come to the conclusion, there was some rule in place by our government meant to protect them from people exposing their crimes. And that law says if you leak government documents, well, you're technically a traitor and you should be in prison. So, I just follow the rules. I just follow the law. So something Edward Snowden should be in prison. Like, that is such a stupid argument. And on top of that, this is how I know they're just repeating propaganda. If you're so big on the rule of law, why are any normal person saying Edward Snowden should be in prison? Isn't it funny how those same people aren't calling for the people in the government who are exposed committing these crimes? It's funny how they're not also calling for them to be in prison. They leave those people out. Those criminals, they just meant, it was a misunderstanding, something. I don't know. We can't put Barack Obama in prison and the FBI director and the CIA. We can't put them in prison, man. They're patriots and they just made a mistake. But Edward Snowden, that guy should definitely be in prison. Like, there's no consistency there. Even if you did want to say, I really believe in the rule of law and I'm just straight and narrow and just the facts, ma'am. And if the law says this, then we just have to follow the law. Even if you believe that, how is Edward Snowden being in prison prioritized over the government conducting, like I said, the crime of the century? How are you not more outraged about that than you are outraged about Edward Snowden exposing it? So, it's just, like I said, the Edward Snowden story is just a perfect example of how the government is going to lie to the American people and literally shape public opinion and twist it in a way that is completely opposite of the facts, what the facts are. So yes, Edward Snowden should be pardoned. And yes, Donald Trump should do it. And if he does, here's the thing. Like, the fact that this is even being debated and the fact that there's even a possibility that Edward Snowden could be pardoned by Donald Trump, this is one of those things that goes against, and let me be clear, I'm not making any case to vote for Donald Trump, but this flies in the face of the argument that a lot of people, these vote blue no matter who people keep making, that, oh no, I don't care, I don't want to hear any arguments on this. It is just by default better to have Joe Biden in the White House than Donald Trump, because something he's a Democrat, and something nominally we agree on he's supposed to be my ally on issues. So it will obviously be better to have Joe Biden or any Democrat, Kamala Harris, in the White House than Donald Trump. Again, never would I make the argument to vote for Donald Trump. He's a cretin, he's corrupt. He's one of the worst politicians ever in U.S. history. So I would never make the argument for people to vote for him, and of course the coronavirus and the economic crisis and all of that. That being said, Donald Trump is sometimes he is so unpredictable, and he's so unhinged and outside of and uncontrollable that and completely self-centered, that he will do something that completely breaks with the establishment wisdom and conventional wisdom on an important issue, just because it suits him personally to take that position, just because he feels like there's some advantage to him taking that position. So he will go against everyone to do something like pardon Edward Snowden. Joe Biden would fucking never. He would never do that. If it was up to Joe Biden, the CIA probably would have assassinated Edward Snowden of the Obama administration. And I'm dead. If they had the opportunity, Joe Biden would have definitely supported the CIA assassination of Edward Snowden. So this is just one of those instances where just because Trump was slighted by the intelligence community, and that's another. He was slighted by the FISA court and the FBI and the CIA. So even though in almost every other area, he's going to do whatever the fuck they tell him to do, especially when it comes to foreign policy and war and stuff like that. But on this specific issue, when it comes to surveillance, he has a thorn in his side and something sticking in his craw, and it is the whole Russiagate investigation and how it was, the origin of it goes back, like I said, to a bullshit FISA court warrant to approve spying on his campaign. And because of that, Trump has taken this position where he is not going to budge a fucking inch on this, and he's going to continue to blast everybody in the intelligence community who's defending the FISA court and who's defending the Russiagate investigation, because it's convenient for him. And to bolster his argument, he's going to try to now arguably pardon and prop up Edward Snowden and say, hey guys, look at this man. Even before I said it, even before the Russiagate, even before we knew the Obama administration was spying on me and my campaign, even before that guy said this is a problem, that guy said this is exactly what could happen. So hey man, it ain't even just me saying it. It's this guy who put everything on the line to expose the government and say this is exactly what they're gonna do. So hey, don't listen to me, listen to Edward Snowden. That is something you would never get from a Joe Biden administration. You would never get that. Make with that what you will and extrapolate that to whatever issue you'd like. But yes, Donald Trump is a corporate tool and a tool of the establishment, and he doesn't really care about policy at all. And he defers to them and lets them just run his administration. That is true. But when he feels his back is up against the wall, when he feels the heat, he's liable to just do unhinged shit that nobody would expect. And in some cases like this, the result may be a huge win for principled people on the left, something that we weren't expecting anytime soon. So